Chapter 3452. Early in the morning, Bai Shuili was woken up by the phone ringing. When she opened her eyes, there was a phone in her arms. She picked it up in a daze and saw that it was Gu Chong's phone. The desire to survive made her wake up at once, and she looked at her husband. "Answer it." Yi Mulin lifted the quilt and got up. "I'm going to take a shower first." Bai Shuili smiled flatteringly. "Honey, you are so sensible." As soon as she finished speaking, she fell into his arms. He kissed her fiercely and held her slender waist tightly. The phone was still ringing. She patted his shoulder and bit her lips, saying in a low voice, "Didn't you say that you were going to take a shower? This is the last time." He bit her lips angrily and then let go of her and went to the bathroom. Riceworm looked at his back view and drooled. His back was really tempting and made women want to hug him from behind. She couldn't think about it anymore and answered the phone first. In the bathroom, there was the sound of running water and there was steam. Yi Mulin tried hard not to listen to what his wife and first love said. He told himself to be magnanimous, but being magnanimous was shit. He was so angry that he wanted to strangle her, but he didn't want to. He took a shower in this way for 5 minutes to give her some privacy. When he went out, he only wore a bath towel. His riceworm knelt on the bed and threw the phone aside. She looked pitiful. "Yi Mulin, Gu Chong's phone will leave tonight." He looked at her and paused for a moment. Then he went to the bedside and took out a cigarette from the cigarette box. After taking a puff, he asked, "Do you mean that you're going to elope with someone tonight?" "It's a job, not elope." She bit her lips and then moved over to hold his arm. "You agreed last night. Don't go back on your word." She rubbed her face against his arm and then looked up at him secretly, for fear that he would not agree. Yi Mulin looked down at her. "Isn't it your strength to go back on your word? Bai Shuili, if I don't agree, will you run away from home?" She was stunned and then said with a smile, "Thank you for reminding me, Lawyer Yi." He was so angry that he flicked her head with the cigarette in his hand. She immediately moved away. "Don't burn my face. I'll be on camera." Looking at her little face, Yi Mulin sneered. "It's better if you're ugly. If you're ugly, you won't run away." She carefully placed her face on his shoulder and softly said, "If I was a little uglier, you definitely wouldn't like me so much. Men are all visual creatures." He snorted, "I didn't say I liked you. You had a crush, and you've had one for many years," she said with a smile. Yi Mulin chuckled and rubbed her hair. "You promised Gu Chong's phone, didn't you?" She did not dare to utter a sound. He thought for a moment. "Stay at home during the day. I'll get off work early in the afternoon and take you out to buy some things. Also, we haven't signed the contract yet, right? Let me make some preparations." If Bai Shuili had known about the contract Yi Mulin had prepared, she would never have let him meet Gu Chong's phone. He was too immoral. He was not the aloof Lawyer Yi at all. He was a jealous husband. At this time, she was very happy to see that he agreed. She would not doubt anything else. She smiled and said, "Lawyer, get up and go to work tonight. I'll sleep for a while." He pinched her face. "Have breakfast with me before you go to bed." Chapter 3453. She looked at him and complained, "I'm exhausted. I don't want to eat." He stared at her. "If you don't eat, you can save some time, okay?" As he said that, he held her chin and hinted, "I still have some time." After saying that, Riceworm immediately came back to life. She got up and squeezed out a fake smile. "I'm hungry." As she spoke, she rushed into the dining room. Looking at her back, he smiled and followed her. He was still playing with his phone while eating breakfast. Bai Shuili tilted her head and looked at him secretly. After a while, she asked in a low voice, "What are you looking at?" Yi Mulin didn't look up and said lightly, "I'm looking at an artist contract. I've never been in this field before." Riceworm took a bite of the bun. "Why? Do you want to serve female stars?" He finally looked up at her and smiled lightly. "You." She suddenly felt a little awkward and said in a low voice, "I'm not a female star." He smiled and didn't say anything else. He continued to look down. After reading for 5 minutes, he put down his phone and had breakfast. After eating, he got up and kissed the corner of her mouth. "Don't sleep too late. Go to the gym when you're free." She looked at him and said slowly, "There's a gym here. Then why don't I see you exercising?" She poked his chest with her hand and asked, "How do you maintain your muscles here?" Yi Mulin looked at her and smiled slightly. I exercise in the room every night. Why would I need to go to the gym? She blushed and glared at him. He smiled and kissed her again. I'm leaving. Bai Shuli stood up and pulled his hand. He looked at her sideways. She looked a little uneasy. You really let me go? Are you really not angry? Yim Yulin reached out and touched her hair. Yes, I'm not angry. He changed to a relaxed tone. Our Shuli is going to earn money. What's there to be angry about? She really believed his nonsense. Then at night, she felt that her trust had been fed to Xiao Bai. At this moment, she was so touched that she said in a low voice, Yim Yulin, you're so good. She was so touched that she hugged and kissed him. This was probably how the relationship between a man and a woman was at its best. Lawyer Yi went to work with satisfaction. After dealing with the important matters in the morning, he began to help Bai Shuli write the contract. After staying up for a department meeting in the afternoon, he took his handbag and went home. When he returned, the apartment was quiet. He walked in thinking that she was still asleep, but when he walked in, he saw his little wife packing her luggage in the changing room. She was only wearing a pajama with a milk pattern on it, which couldn't hide anything. He put down his briefcase, walked in, and carried her from behind. Why did you bring such a big suitcase? It doesn't look like you're going out for 3 days. It looks more like you're going to elope. Bai Shuli was startled. She turned around in his arms and hugged his shoulders. You have to wear both inside and out. Yim Yulin looked at the big box. She had even prepared the evening dress. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. I heard that it will be taken at an internet celebrities check-in place. Do you think that you will be attending a banquet? Chapter 3454. Yim Yulin didn't have that intention at first, but when she said that, he looked at her, dragged her over to the dressing mirror, and peeled her like a boiled egg. No. She hugged him back. He forced her to look at the mirror and hugged her neatly. His thin lips pressed against the warm skin of her neck. Only I can see your beauty, understand? She hugged him shamefully. He was so bad. Yim Yulin leaned against her. Do you miss me when we go out for a few days? Yes. She picked a pleasant word for him and then bit her lower lip. Yim Yulin, I'm more afraid that you'll misunderstand. She looked up at him. You agreed, but will you trust me? He stared at her eyes and said slowly, My agreement means trust. She looked at him and was slightly touched. He reached out to touch her red lips. If you dare to do anything, I'll break your legs or stew Xiao Bai. You choose one. Yim Yulin. She was furious. I'm the one who's touched. You've ruined the good atmosphere. He smiled. Put on your clothes. Don't catch a cold. She was even angrier. Why did he take off her clothes? She snorted when she was angry. No. Lawyer Yi helped her pack her suitcase, then looked at her and smiled softly. Are you waiting for me to do something to you? She was furious. I'm not. If not, put on your clothes. It'll be bad if you catch a cold. He smiled and looked at the time. Go out and buy something first. I'll send you to the airport after dinner. No. She threw a tantrum and stared at him with red eyes. You don't miss me at all. You just wanted to go out so that you can have a mistress, don't you? Her sudden provocation made him angry and amused. He carried her to the sofa and sat her down. He helped her put on her clothes. Are you unhappy if I don't take you? She hugged him shamelessly. I just want to squeeze you dry. I don't want others to take advantage of you. He couldn't help laughing. What others? Shweli, stop it. She still hugged him and put her face on his shoulder. But I can't bear to leave you. His heart thumped. She had been throwing a tantrum for half a day just for this. Her heart felt warm and soft. He reached out and patted her head. I'll only be gone for a few days. It's not like I won't be back. She wrapped her arms around his waist. I thought you were indifferent. Yim Yulin, Gu Changfeng and I spent a month together. He draped a jacket over her shoulders and glared at her. Are you still being reasonable? If I don't let you go, you say that I'm petty. But if I let you go, you talk so much. Bai Shuli, don't go now. She stuck out her tongue. I know you'll let me go. She looked up and kissed him. I promise I won't do anything to let you down. Or I'll stew little white, she said with a smile. He held on her little neck and said coldly, I've changed my mind. I only want to break your legs. The rice worm howled and hugged him tightly. He helped her put on her clothes and carefully checked her luggage and the identity cards in her bag like a parent. Finally, He gave her a card and a few thousand yuan in cash. As for her 500,000 yuan, he confiscated it. Bai Shuolan bit her lip. Yim Yulin, that's my money. Chapter 3455. She glared at him. I worked hard to earn it. You can't do without my support. Lawyer Yu was already walking out with his luggage. I'll take good care of Xiao Bai. She followed behind him reluctantly and mumbled, I just feel that you've kicked me out. He smiled. How would he dare? When they arrived at the parking lot, he put the suitcase in the trunk, opened the door of the passenger seat for her, and held it while waiting for her. Bai Shuili stood there and didn't seem to want to get in the car. He smiled and said, It looks like I forced you to go. Only then did she get into the car. Yim Yulin closed the door for her. When he got into the car, he sat down and said in a low voice, Surely, have you thought about it? What would you think if I didn't let you go? She turned her head to look at him in a daze. Yim Yulin smiled and said, If marriage is a siege, you'll sometimes feel that it's better to get some fresh air. I don't mind, but don't touch the flowers and plants on the road. You'll feel. He put his finger on her lips and pressed it gently. It's definitely not as good as the ones at home. She was stunned. Yim Yulin, you think too highly of yourself. He smiled warmly. It's your reaction that makes me feel confident and accomplished, Mrs. Yi. She blushed and ignored him. He smiled and started the car. She had promised to buy him a gift, so she wasn't surprised that he drove the car to the underground parking lot of the mall. She was worried about her money as soon as she got out of the car. She kept saying, You can't buy anything too expensive. It's $500,000. He pinched her face. Who wants to buy jewelry that's worth tens of millions every day? It's normal for women to go shopping, but it's a sin for men to spend money. She counted her white fingers and thought of something. And I've read Chicken Soup for the Soul. It says that men can't dress up too well or they'll betray their wives. Yim Yulin put his arm around her shoulder. Which mean woman said that? It's your mother, she said honestly and then forced a smile, looking very happy. Yim Yulin was speechless. He couldn't tell her not to talk to her mother. Could he? He took her to a brand store, which had both men's and women's clothing. Bai Shuili looked at him. You want to buy clothes? He glanced at her and went to pick out clothes. Because it was late autumn, he chose a dark gray cashmere sweater and a pair of khaki trousers. He didn't even try them on and stuffed them into her hands. Go pay. Why do I have to pay? Isn't the money with you? She exploded. Yim Yulin smiled. I didn't bring any money. Riceworm cursed under his breath and took out the money. Fortunately, it was not expensive. The two items added up only cost about 2,000. After paying, she counted her wallet and her heart ached. But when he left, he still saw a long windbreaker hanging on the wall. It was very nice and suited him very well. She paused. How about this one? Lawyer Yi looked at her. Do you still have money? She counted the money she had and hesitated. But this one is really nice. In the end, she couldn't help but take it down and let him try. It was indeed beautiful. Looking at the price, it was 6,800 yuan. It wasn't expensive, but she only had the 2,000 to 3,000 yuan that Huang Shuren gave her when the shop assistant asked. She shook her head and said, I don't think so. Yim Yulin put it on and swiped his card. She hugged his arm. Didn't you say that you didn't bring any money? Chapter 3456. Oh, she replied. She felt that they were really going to be separated. Yim Yulin lowered his head and reached out to stroke her hair. Call me every day if you can't bear to. Oh, she replied again and looked up at him. She couldn't help but reach out and hug his waist. The salesgirl in the store felt her heart melt. This couple was really in love. She raised her phone and took a few photos. It was still early, so Yim Yulin took her to the Cartier counter downstairs. She looked at him. What else do you want to buy? Didn't you buy a gift? All she could think of was that he was going to spend her money again. Yim Yulin glanced at her and asked the salesgirl to bring out a pair of rings. The salesgirl smiled and took them out and put them on the counter. Yim Yulin dragged the young lady beside him. Try it on. She muttered, I have a wedding ring. He endured it. Mubai was the one who bought the wedding ring. And he didn't have it. He didn't have it. And she didn't know how to flirt, so his face was a little dark. Bai Shuili looked at him carefully. She felt that he was really narrow-minded and easily got angry. She hummed and tried it on. The ring was just right. At this moment, Yumulin also tried it on. It was just right. He didn't take it off and paid the bill. When they came out, his little wife was still thinking about her assets. Yumulin, this money isn't coming from my 500,000 yuan, is it? He couldn't take it anymore and stopped. Is this the main point? Why isn't the main point? She muttered softly. She only dared to mutter. Don't be so awkward today. You're like an old man going through menopause. You're so weird. When she said that, he remembered that she had made fun of him last night, saying that he was an old man. His face darkened, and he walked in front of her. She immediately followed him. He ignored her. She hugged his arm. Lawyer Yi said, "Didn't you say that I'm an old man? Why are you still pestering me?" She hugged his arm tightly and said honestly, "Even if you're an old man, you're still a rich old man. I can take it just because of this." She even gave a fake smile. Yumulin could not take it anymore and tried to shake her off. However, she was like a sticky candy that he could not shake off no matter how hard he tried. After a while, she whispered, "I know you're jealous, aren't you? Lawyer Yi, it doesn't exist. You are jealous. You are jealous that Gu Changfeng is younger than you and knew me earlier than you," she said happily. He suddenly stopped and said softly, "Something's wrong." She looked at him. He smiled faintly. "I met you earlier than him, a few years earlier." Her expression softened as she hugged him. "That's why it's all your fault. You liked me, but didn't tell me. Now, you're throwing a weird tantrum and asking me to go. You're doing all these little tricks. Yumulin, you're really childish." As she spoke, her small hand gently drew something on his back. When he realized what she had written, all the unwillingness and injustice in his heart were soothed and his body slowly relaxed. He whispered, "Shweli, am I difficult to get along with? It's okay. Menopause is always like this. My mother used to be like this too," she said with a smile. The eldest son of the Yi family's face darkened again. He felt that he would die of anger because of her sooner or later. Chapter 3457. During the meal, he didn't say anything. Bai Shuili was a little uneasy, afraid that he was really angry. But when they got in the car, he kissed her for a while. She really couldn't understand him, but she was too lazy to figure it out. Sitting in the car, she looked at the rings on her hand and then looked at his. Yumulin held the steering wheel and suddenly said, "When you get there, don't forget to call me every day. If you can come back early, I can pick you up in Sea City." Such simple words made her feel a little sad. She couldn't tell what she was feeling. After a long time, she said, "If the shooting is done, I will come back early. But you don't need to pick me up. Gu Changfeng and I will come back all the way. I don't trust you." His voice was low in the dusk. "You almost never go far." Rice Worm smiled dryly. "I used to go abroad for fun. Did you forget that I studied abroad?" Yumulin smiled and said after a pause, "Shueli, in my heart, your life started when you married me." She was a little confused. Was there such an algorithm? But, okay, it seemed a little sweet. As night fell, the lights on the highway were turned on, like a bright long dragon. She suddenly opened the window childishly and said loudly to the outside, "Yumulin, what do you think it would be good if we drove on this road without reaching the end?" She didn't expect him to answer her. He would think she was childish. But to her surprise, Yumulin answered her. He didn't answer her directly, but asked her, "If so, Bai Shuili, are you willing? Are you willing to be with me forever?" She was stunned. She was leaning against the window, but now she slowly turned her head to look at him. He was still looking forward and driving, as if he didn't say those words to her, as if he had never said them. She hesitated and said after a long time, "If it's you, I think I'm willing." Yumulin clenched his fingers and said in a hoarse voice, "Remember what you said today." She said in a daze and then said hurriedly, "Yumulin, I think you lack a sense of security." He smiled gently, which was how a husband should be. She sat in the chair, biting her finger as she looked at him. She suddenly remembered how he used to be rough with her, hitting her, forcing her, and doing all kinds of bad things. If it wasn't for the photo evidence, she really didn't want to believe that he liked her. Suddenly, he grabbed her with one hand and said in a low and hoarse voice, "Close the window. Don't catch a cold." "Oh," she replied, and tilted her head to look at him. Yumulin was still indifferent, but she felt a little warm. When she arrived at the airport, She called Gu Changfeng first. Gu Changfeng had already arrived and soon found them in the parking lot. The agreement was signed on the hood of the car. Gu Changfeng took a look at it, but did not sign it immediately. Instead, he let Bai Shuili have a look. Bai Shuili felt a little strange and took a look at it. What's wrong? Gu Changfeng smiled. I'll take a look. Oh, she replied and read it carefully. There was no problem at the front, but there was a striking line at the last line. No feelings outside of a working relationship are allowed between both parties. Chapter 3458. Yumulin picked up the paper and said casually, "You can't go if you don't sign it. Think about it." She turned her head angrily. "You've shown your true colors, haven't you? I've always been like this." He was in a good mood and didn't mind being laughed at by Gu Changfeng. Gu Changfeng's eyes fell on the ring on Yimulin's finger and the Cartier ring on Bai Shuili's finger. He smiled lightly. "Just sign it. It's nothing." Bai Shuili was so angry that she wanted to cry. She didn't want to talk to Yimulin anymore. The last contract was signed by two men. Lawyer Yi said, while signing, "Only minors under 18 years old need their parents to sign on their behalf." "How old are you, Bai Shuili?" She was so angry. His face was even bigger than AP's share. After signing, she put the contract on his chest and walked into the hall with her suitcase. Gu Changfeng didn't follow her immediately. He put away the pen and smiled lightly. "Do you always like to bully her like this?" "Do I?" Yimulin smiled and put his hands in his pocket. "This is the fun between husband and wife. Mr. Gu, you may not understand." Gu Changfeng also smiled. He looked at the entrance and suddenly sighed. "But I know Bai Shuili better than you do. She needs to be treated well, or she would rather not have you." Yimulin's eyes changed slightly. He remembered the last time Bai Shuili ran away from home. She said to him, "Yimulin, if you don't like me, I don't want to like you either." Gu Changfeng really knew her well. He smiled coldly, still stood there and lit a cigarette. "I won't see her off. Goodbye, Mr. Gu." Gu Changfeng smiled and reached out his hand. Yimulin looked at him and was a little confused, but he still reached out his hand and shook it. Gu Changfeng smiled lightly. "Lawyer Yi, don't worry. I will take care of her." The corners of Yimulin's mouth twitched. He really didn't want to reveal too much emotion in front of his rival in love. Actually, he was feeling a little regretful. Why'd he let her go and go out with her ex-lover? They ate and slept together for 3 days. But if he regretted it now and dragged her back, she would definitely argue with him for a long time. Besides, it was not Yimulin's style. After saying that, Yimulin made up his mind and drove away. He didn't even say goodbye to the rice worm. Perhaps he was still angry in his heart. When Gu Changfeng arrived at the airport lobby, Bai Shuili had already checked her luggage. Seeing him coming over, she asked in a low voice, "Did he say anything?" Seeing his little wife's expression, Gu Changfeng felt funny and sad, but he still teased her. "Which one?" "Gu Changfeng." She shouted angrily. Gu Changfeng smiled. Yimulin has already left. He didn't say anything. She stared blankly for a moment. Her expression was one of shock and disappointment. He saw it all. Gu Changfeng coughed and said, "Why? Are you reluctant to let him go?" "It's not like I can't bear to part with him. He's so stubborn and has such a weird temper," she complained. Her expression was very interesting. Gu Changfeng nodded and said slowly, "He has a very high opinion of you." Bai Shuili stared blankly for a moment before saying, "What did he say? Didn't you say he didn't say anything?" Chapter 3459. Riceworm was annoyed. "Don't believe him. He means that he will dislike me if I stay at home and do nothing." Gu Changfeng took the plane ticket and walked to the security checkpoint with her. He smiled and said, "Shuili, do you think he really dislikes you?" She looked at him for a few seconds and walked into the security checkpoint without saying anything. Gu Changfeng followed her and didn't ask anymore. They didn't talk much on the plane. When they arrived at Sea City, Gu Changfeng took her to the hotel. The rooms were next to each other. After settling down, they went to have dinner together. Sea City was very prosperous, with the unique style of the water town in the south of the Yangtze River. Bai Shuilan sat in the restaurant and looked at the night view outside. She couldn't help thinking that it would be nice if Yulin could come and have a look. He was too serious, and it was suitable for him to relax in the water town in the south of the Yangtze River. She was a little lost in thought. Gu Changfeng took a sip of tea and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "I was thinking that it would be great if Yulin could come." She blurted out, but then she felt a little awkward. "Gu Changfeng, I'm sorry." "There's nothing to be sorry about. I'm happy that you're doing well." Gu Changfeng smiled. "Since you're here, you should relax." She nodded and held her arms. After a while, she looked at Gu Changfeng. "It's past 9 o'clock. Let's go back to the hotel." Gu Changfeng looked at her face and sighed. "Shueli, you've changed a lot." She looked at him and touched her face. "Have I become more beautiful?" He shook his head and smiled, saying nothing more. They walked back to the hotel. The night was like water, and the autumn was cool. Gu Changfeng kicked the stones on the road and said, "Shueli, are you very happy now?" She walked forward with her arms crossed and said softly, "Gu Changfeng, I don't know what other people's happiness looks like, but I don't think I'm willing to make do with it." She paused and raised her head to look at him. "I've always liked Mumbai. I thought that the deepest feeling was to desperately want to obtain something, but now I know that's not the case. Only when you've obtained something will it be unforgettable. Everything that you haven't obtained can become smoke in the past." Gu Changfeng stared at her. The night wind blew her hair. Her face was fair and pure, and she didn't have much makeup on. He said that she had changed a lot, and he meant it. She used to chase after material things, but now she only wanted Yulin. It was just that she had not realized it yet. Gu Changfeng smiled. This was what he wanted in front of the camera, but it no longer belonged to him. It belonged to Yulin. He reached out his hand, hesitated for a moment, and stroked her long hair. "Let's go back to the hotel and give him a call. Otherwise, he won't be at ease." He thought that he should let it go. Wasn't the most profound love for the other party's happiness? He didn't care if this happiness was brought to her by himself, as long as she was happy. Bai Shuili nodded and walked back to the hotel together. She called Yulin first. That person was still a little angry and absent-minded. Riceworm was furious. "You asked me to call you, but you're not enthusiastic at all." Lawyer, you was speechless. "Who's going to quench my fire when I'm passionate?" Riceworm immediately hung up. He was too shameless. If you talk about feelings with him, he will try to seduce you. Shameless, shameless to the core. Chapter 3460. Bai Shuili hung up the phone and poured out all her luggage. She found her pajamas and prepared to take a bath and have a beauty sleep. She ran to the bathroom with her pajamas and facial mask. She filled the tub with hot water and checked her phone to see if Yulin would call her again. In the end, there was no call or message. What the hell? She soaked in the bathtub with a facial mask on her face. She thought gloomily that he must be very happy that she went out. Didn't married men like freedom the most? He could do whatever he wanted without his wife by his side. No, she had to check on him. She grabbed her phone and was about to make a call when she suddenly felt uncomfortable in her stomach, especially in her stomach. It was very uncomfortable, and she wanted to vomit but couldn't. She put on her pajamas and leaned over the toilet for a long time, but she didn't vomit. Her heart was so stuffy that she thought she might be sick. She ran outside and leaned on the sofa to search on Baidu Weekly. What's with the nausea and vomiting? The results came out. All of them said that she might be pregnant. Riceworm's brain exploded as if she was struck by lightning. She searched on Baidu again to find out that she was pregnant. After reading the netizens' answers, she found out that there was a thing called a pregnancy test. She put on her clothes in a hurry and ran downstairs with her uncomfortable body. She wanted to know if she was pregnant now. When she went downstairs, although her body was very uncomfortable, she felt very strange because she might be pregnant. A child with Yulin. She didn't want to be pregnant so soon, but he seemed to want one. She bit her lower lip and looked at her pale face in the mirror. She felt that she had never looked so good before. When she ran out of the hotel, she felt that it was very dangerous for a pregnant woman to walk on the street. She slowed down and carefully held her belly. Pregnant women had to be careful for the sake of the baby. After a few minutes, she found a 24-hour pharmacy. After she went in, she mumbled for a long time before she expressed her intention. The shop assistant immediately gave her a box of pregnancy tests. She paid and ran back to the hotel to have it tested. She still felt uncomfortable and wanted to vomit. However, this discomfort made her feel like she was floating, and the discomfort turned into happiness. When she was done, she gently removed her hand and looked at the 2 red lines on it. She let out a cry. She was pregnant. What to do? She was pregnant. She hurriedly took out her phone and called Yimulin. When the phone rang, she was so excited that she did not know what to do with him. She thought that he would be very happy to know that she was pregnant. The phone rang 5 or 6 times before it was connected. Baishuali did not directly say that she was pregnant. Instead, she asked sweetly, "Lawyer Yi, are you still earning money to support your family?" A chuckle came from the other side. "I'm on a date with a woman." Baishuali did not say anything. His voice became gentler. "Are you angry again?" "I'm taking a shower." "Oh," she replied dejectedly. Yimulin sighed. "I heard you were quite happy just now. What made you so happy?" She forced herself to be happy and kept him in suspense. "You'd better work hard. In the future, there will be more people to support." Chapter 3461. Riceworm suddenly felt that his delicate body had become more expensive. He replied in a very reserved manner, "Yes, are you happy?" After waiting for a long time, he said, "Wait for me." After saying that, he hung up the phone. On the other side, Riceworm was a little confused. What did he mean by waiting for him? It was late at night. She didn't want to wait for him to finish his shower. She wanted to sleep. So she resisted the feeling of nausea and lay down on the bed. Her dream was full of a nest of cute bunnies that she gave birth to for Yimulin. She fell asleep in a daze and felt very uncomfortable. She ran to the bathroom several times, but still felt a little nauseous. Looking in the mirror, Riceworm felt that she was very great and kept convincing herself that all children were like this. Mothers had to sacrifice themselves. At this time, she even wanted to call her mother and tell her how she felt. She wanted to tell her that she could understand her mother's feelings in the past. She lay dizzy, but her heart was full of happiness. She didn't know how long she had stayed up. She only felt that the light was bright. She opened her eyes and looked at her watch. It was already 2 o'clock at night. Oh, it was so uncomfortable. She missed Yimulin so much. She held the pillow in her arms, childishly. If only he was here. She even thought about going back to B-City. It would be best if she could immediately throw herself into his warm embrace. Just as she was feeling anxious, there was a knock on the door. Baishuali was stunned for a moment. Then she sat up and looked at the door. Could it be a bad guy? It couldn't be. This was a 5-star hotel. There wouldn't be a bad guy knocking on the door, would there? Or a small card. It couldn't be either. She got up boldly and squatted at the door for a while. There was a knock on the door again. This time she was sure that it was her door. She bit her lip and was about to call the front desk when her phone rang. She ran over and saw that it was Yimulin. She picked it up and said in a low voice, "Yimulin, someone is knocking on my door. I'm a little scared." Yimulin paused and said, "Why didn't you call Gu Changfeng?" She said, "Oh, I just remembered that I called him. No, it's me at the door." His voice was particularly hoarse and deep. Baishuali gasped. He said again, "Open the door." She was still confused. After a long time, she said, "It's you." He grunted, "It's me." Baishuali bit her lower lip and felt indescribably happy. She immediately went to open the door. He stood at the door, looking travel-worn. There was a duffel bag at his feet. It was obvious that he had left in a hurry. She gritted her teeth. "How can there be a flight so late? My father's private plane arrived in Sea City and called for a military helicopter." He looked at her and smiled. "Because I want this little guy to be the first to let his father sense it." She leaned against the door, and he slowly walked forward, his voice hoarse. "Surely, I'm very happy." He came over and hugged her. His warm palm was placed flat on her lower abdomen, touching it very tenderly. She bit her lip and her eyes were watery. "Yimulin, are you really happy?" He grunted and chuckled. "Yes, I'm very happy." Chapter 3462. Yimulin was amused and annoyed at the same time. He reached out and touched her head. "How can you kiss away the child?" "Nonsense." She still looked at him and said childishly, I was nauseous just now, but now that you've kissed me, I don't feel nauseous anymore. Her words pleased him. He held her head and kissed her for a while before whispering against her forehead, "Shueli, I'm really happy." She leaned against the door and snorted. "You only value the child, but not me." He held her in his arms and entered the room. He picked up the luggage and smiled. "If I don't value you, how can I look forward to this child?" As he spoke, he began to pack the luggage. A few clothes were hung up at once. Shueli followed behind him and asked in a low voice, "How long will you stay here?" He hung up the clothes and turned around. "I'll accompany you back to B-City." Riceworm stuttered again. "Aren't you very busy?" Yumulin sat on the armchair and pulled her onto his lap. He smiled and said, "You're pregnant. Don't you want me to accompany you?" "Yes." She lay on his shoulder obediently and felt a little uneasy. "But you're very busy. Can you really stay here with me for a few days?" She looked at him and said, "You won't leave suddenly, will you?" He smiled. "No, I'll be with you all the time." Riceworm hugged his neck happily. "Yumulin, you're so nice." He kissed her. "Are you still uncomfortable? I'll go take a shower first." Her eyes were sparkling. It was the most beautiful look in love. "Then, Mr. Yi, I'll wait for you in bed." He patted her. "Don't be naughty." She hugged him and kissed him. "I miss you very much." After saying that, she wanted to leave, but she was held by his big hand. Yumulin looked at her and said in a low voice, "We've only been separated for less than a day." She blinked and said, "But I feel like we've been separated for a long time." Then she hugged him. "I just miss you." His heart was a little wet. He couldn't describe the feeling. It felt like his heart was overflowing. There was nowhere to put it. He held his little wife in his arms and said in a low voice, "Shueli." Yes. She was obedient in his arms. Although her body was still uncomfortable, she felt much better being hugged by him like this. Yumulin said in a low voice, "I love you. Do you know that?" Riceworm's body stiffened. He raised his head and accidentally hit Lawyer Ye's chin. But his expression was still very gentle, and he looked at his wife very tenderly. She bit her lip in disbelief. "Are you telling the truth?" He only smiled without saying a word. She blinked and pulled his hand, saying softly, "Yumulin, can you say that again?" He patted her and got up. "I'm going to take a bath." She clung to him and followed behind him. She hugged his arm and made a fuss. "Yumulin, say it again." He stood at the door of the bathroom and turned to look at her with a unique expression of Lawyer Yi. "Shower with me, or wait for you in bed. Choose one." After a long time, Riceworm finally came to his senses. He shrieked, "You beast!" She ran away, and he took off his bathrobe. Looking at her back, he smiled. Chapter 3463. He went over and took her phone. "You're still playing with your phone when you're pregnant." She bit her lip. "I want to post it on my WeChat moments. Several of my classmates have given birth, and they're showing off their babies all day long. I want to do it too." He looked at her. "What are you showing off? Are you showing off your tummy?" "It's not big." She sat on the bed. "I'm bored. Shouldn't you accompany me first before taking a bath?" She said with some grievance. He looked at her and smiled. He sat on the bed and put her on his lap. "I'm with you now." She pouted. "I feel dizzy and I want to throw up." He said, "I'll take you to the hospital tomorrow morning for a checkup." Then he thought of something. "Did you buy a pregnancy test yourself?" Her eyes were sparkling. "Yumulin, you know about this?" He pinched her cheek. "This is common sense, okay?" She lay in his arms shyly and said softly, "Do you think it's a boy or a girl? Either is fine as long as it's fine." He couldn't help but rub her hair. She said, "Oh," and lay in his arms obediently. "I want a boy." He looked down at her. Shueli put her arms around his neck. "You'll feel less pressure if you give birth to a boy. Dad and Mom both want a boy to inherit the Yi family." He felt satisfied again and murmured, "It doesn't matter. It's just that we didn't give birth to a boy, and we still have Mubai. Is he okay?" She raised her little face and asked naughtily. He knocked her and said, "Naughty." Shueli squinted and smiled. She lay on the bed and said coquettishly, "I feel dizzy and I still want to throw up." He frowned. "Is it very uncomfortable?" It was his first time getting married and his wife's first pregnancy, so he had no experience. Riceworm nodded. It's very uncomfortable. Yulin, I think it's great to be a mother. She touched her non-existent belly and said softly, but I think he's very cute. He chuckled. He's so small. How can you see that he's cute? He's cute. She blinked, but her expression soon changed. No, I have to go to the bathroom. He supported her and was a little worried. Do you still feel like vomiting? No, I want to. Bai Shuili frowned and looked pitiful. She quickly ran to the bathroom and closed the door. He knocked on the door worriedly. Shirley, don't come in. I'll be fine in a while. Her voice was a little uncomfortable and weak. He allowed a long sigh. All right, I'll wait for you at the door. However, in less than 5 minutes, he couldn't help but push the door open and enter. After entering, he saw her sitting on the toilet with a pale face and a worried expression. Yulin, will I accidentally pull the baby out? He was annoyed and amused at the same time. He went forward and gently knocked her head. Idiot. She was a little dazed from the slap. Her heart was sweet at first, but her expression quickly changed. Get out, I'm going to have diarrhea again. Later, not only did he have diarrhea, but he also vomited. Yulin contacted a gynecologist in Sea City overnight. It was already 4:30 a.m. by the time he sent her over. The rice worm was a little empty. In the car, she lay weakly on his lap and said softly, Yulin, am I very useless? Chapter 3464. His heart was full of heartache. He kissed her and said, Don't talk. We'll talk when we get to the hospital. She reached out and hugged his waist. She closed her eyes and endured it for a while before she said softly, Yulin, I feel much better when you hug me like this. Silly girl. His voice was low and hoarse. He lowered his head and kissed her. All right, don't talk anymore. We'll get to the hospital soon. She nodded and closed her eyes obediently. She just leaned her fluffy little head against him and pressed it a little tighter. Yulin raised his eyes and looked at the white sky outside. His heart was filled with infinite pity. There was also a trace of reluctance in this pity. It was an emotion he had never felt before. The car soon arrived at the Women's and Children's Hospital in Sea City. The doctor who came to diagnose was the best gynecologist in Sea City. Yulin took the rice worm in and left. He was a little worried and smoked outside. After 10 minutes, a voice came from inside. Mr. Yi. He quickly put out the cigarette and walked in quickly. As soon as he entered, he saw his rice worm looking dejected. Her little face was pale and uneasy. He went over and didn't talk to the doctor first. Instead, he reached out and touched her head. He asked warmly, What's wrong? Bai Shuili raised her head. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she said softly with her last bit of stubbornness, Yulin, I'm not pregnant. I'm just not used to this place. Will you laugh at me? Will you be disappointed? Will you think that I'm useless? When she said that, her lips trembled slightly. It was obvious how big the blow was. Yulin brought her into his arms. Her little head was pressed against his chest. He reached out and rubbed it. We'll have a child soon, okay? She bit her lips in his arms. Will you take back what you said? What? He smiled. The rice worm suddenly became shy and said in a small voice, You said you love me? She looked up and her eyes were full of little stars. Those little stars were shining with anticipation and fear. Yulin smiled and reached out to rub her head. How can I take back what I said? She still looked at him. He smiled and whispered as if he was coaxing a child. I don't want to take it back either. His little millet worm let out an "oh" and leaned against his chest in relief. The female doctor was exasperated and amused at the same time. As she prescribed the medicine, she said, I wanted to say a few words of consolation, but now that I see that you should be fine, I'll prescribe a box of medicine. If there are still adverse reactions after taking it, then you might have to stay in a hospital for an 4 drip or go home. Bai Shuili tugged at his sleeve. I haven't finished filming yet. I don't want to go home. Yulin patted her. I'll stay with you. She was relieved, but not so relieved. After returning to the hotel and taking the medicine, she felt much better and more energetic. She leaned in his arms to catch up on sleep. But after experiencing so many thrilling things in one night, she couldn't fall asleep. She always felt that she had obtained some kind of treasure, but she couldn't tell what kind of treasure it was. She leaned against him and whispered, "Yi Mulin, can you say that again? The words I said I love you?" He smiled and looked down at her. She did not speak, but only looked at him. Chapter 3465. As he said that, he pulled her into his arms and whispered a few words. She hugged him and didn't speak anymore. He patted her and coaxed her to sleep. When she was in a daze, he whispered, "Shiwili, you want a child, don't you?" He was so happy to see her pregnant. He had never seen her so happy before. Why Shiwili opened her eyes. She just opened her eyes a little and said vaguely, "Yes, I really want one." She put her little face in his arms and said childishly, "I promise I won't be called Yi Mu Bai. I'll just be called Yi Xiao Bai, okay?" He glared at her. "It sounds like an idiot's child. You're the idiot." She hit his lower abdomen as revenge. Yi Mulin smiled and held her in his arms to coax her to sleep. The sky was turning white, and it was finally dawn. However, she slept very deeply and didn't wake up until noon. When she woke up, although her head was still a little dizzy, she didn't feel uncomfortable or nauseous anymore. Although she felt much better, she was still a little sad about this mistake. She touched her belly and felt that she had a miscarriage. Yi Mulin put down the notebook in his hand and sat on the bed. "Are you hungry? I'll ask someone to send some light food over." She sat on the bed and nodded. "Okay, I'm a little hungry." He went to call customer service. After that, Bai Shuili asked him, "Is Gu Changfeng here?" He went to check the location in the morning. He said that if you have the strength in the afternoon, you can go tomorrow. He came over and touched her long hair. He smiled. "Don't worry, I didn't tell him that you're pregnant." "I'm not pregnant." Riceworm pursed her lips. "I'm so disappointed." He smiled. "We'll have a child soon." She hugged the pillow and felt a little disappointed. "I suddenly miss Yao Bai." Yi Mulin kissed her for a while. The customer service sent a light lunch, and he ate with her. Bai Shuili didn't have a good appetite, but she ate a little. Then she looked at him. "Actually, you don't have to eat this with me. You can eat something better." He smiled and said, "It's not that troublesome. When you're better, let's go eat barbecue together, okay?" She knew that he wanted to cheer her up. However, she thought about it and said softly, "I don't want to. I'm afraid you'll have a stomachache again." She forced a smile at him. "I'm fine now. Actually, you can go back to Bee City if you have something to do." He looked at her and sighed. "How can I rest assured when you're like this?" These are probably the best words of love. How could Riceworm resist it? She smiled at him, then climbed up and walked behind him to hug him gently. She pressed her face against his back and said softly, "Yi Mulin, I really want to be with you forever." He held one of her hands and smiled. Silly girl. She simply hugged him and acted coquettishly. Yi Mulin had no choice but to pull her into his arms and kiss her carefully for a while. He kissed her until her blood was boiling. Only when there was a knock on the door did he let go of her and let her continue to eat while he went to open the door. It was Gu Changfeng at the door. He looked at Yi Mulin and nodded. "How is Shuili?" Before Yi Mulin said anything, Bai Shuili immediately said in a hurry, "I'm very good, very good. I can go to the shoot in the afternoon." Yi Mulin walked over and knocked her head with dissatisfaction. "Don't be restless at all." Chapter 3466. As soon as he finished his words, Riceworm looked at him eagerly. Yi Mulin smiled. "What? Is there a problem, Mrs. Yi?" Mrs. Yi thought that he was naive, and shameless. It was obvious that he was declaring his sovereignty in front of Gu Changfeng. Men were all so superficial, naive. But as Mrs. Yi, she still had to show some respect to Mr. Yi. So she whispered, "Of course." Gu Changfeng smiled, but he felt bitter in his heart. Yi Mulin rubbed his wife's hair. "It's not that I didn't want to eat just now, but now I have a good appetite." She bit her lips and stared at him. Couldn't he show some respect to her? The shooting in the afternoon went well, which was out of Gu Changfeng's expectation. Bai Shuili was in a very good state. She wore a checkered shirt. She didn't need to pretend to be very young. She just looked like she was loved. Her eyes were shining when she looked at Yi Mulin. This group of first love did not belong to Gu Changfeng or Bai Shuili, but Yi Mulin. Gu Changfeng took this group of photos with his long lens. But after that, he seemed to have finished a journey in his life. He wanted to name this group of photos Letting Go. As expected, the photos won a prize a month later. An authoritative gold prize in Berlin was broadcast live on many TV stations. Yi Mulin and Bai Shuili sat on the sofa at home and watched it. Mrs. Yi held her face. Wow, Gu Changfeng took such a beautiful picture of me. Mr. Yi tilted his head and looked at his wife. It's because I raised you well. Then he coughed. Don't you want to have a baby? As he spoke, he picked her up and walked toward the bedroom. Bai Shuili put her arms around his neck and smiled. Mr. Yi, you are jealous. Yes, I am jealous, and the consequences will be serious. He lowered his head and bit her lips. Riceworm looked at him softly and was put on the bed by him. She put her arms around his neck and begged, Stop it, okay? He kissed her. I want it. Those 3 words had crushed her. It turned out that if he liked someone, as long as he said 3 simple words, as long as he wanted it, she would be willing. When it was over, she lay in his arms and whispered, Yi Mulin, do you think you're pregnant this time? He smiled and touched her little head. If I can't get pregnant, I'll try again next time. She crawled over and lay in his arms. Her little hand gently drew on his chest. Her hair was also scattered on his body, tangling together. Yi Mulin kissed her. Go take a shower. Oh, she replied as he carried her to the bathroom. After washing up, he went to the study to deal with some matters. Bai Shuili lay on the bed alone, her small hand stroking the white pillow. Her heart was in a sweet mess. After returning from Sea City for a month, he treated her very well. He would come home very early every night, and even if he was late, he would call her and ask her to go home with him to the office. Their life was like that of an old married couple. It was very ordinary. If it was in the past, she would definitely not find it interesting. But now, she felt that it was very good, so good that she felt that it would be good to continue like this. But there was only a baby left, she thought with some happiness. Then she secretly went to the bathroom and took a pregnancy test. It was still a red line. She was a little depressed. She had worked very hard, and Yi Mulin was also very good. Why didn't she get pregnant last month? Chapter 3467. Because she wanted to have a baby, Mrs. Yi was very active and enthusiastic at night. Mr. Yi enjoyed it so much that he didn't want her to get pregnant soon. He felt that they should play more since they were newly married. Of course, Riceworm didn't know his dark mind. She just thought that he was eager to have a baby as soon as possible, just like her. So she didn't get pregnant. She sighed when eating with Lin Cece. Cece, do you think I should have a physical examination? Why can't I get pregnant? Lin Cece winked at her and said, Do you want to ask your lawyer Yi to check it out? Riceworm's expression was very sweet and innocent. Cece? Lin Cece coughed lightly. No matter how powerful Yi Mulin is, what if the survival rate of his little tadpoles is low? It's useless no matter how hard he works. Bai Shuili looked a little fascinated. She ate the delicious food in her mouth. After a while, she was excited. I have never thought about it. I even looked for the reason for myself. Lin Cece looked at her full of vitality and couldn't help smiling gently. She took the bill to pay the bill. Bai Shuili was Mrs. Yi now, but she still liked to exploit her. Lin Cece protested many times, but it was useless. She was too lazy to protest. Over there, Riceworm had already flown out. Cece, thank you for inviting me to dinner. I'll treat you another day. Lin Cece gave her an expression of get it. Forget it. She probably couldn't wait for this day in her life. After paying the bill, she looked up and saw a person standing beside her. She was slightly stunned and looked at Guze. Guze also looked at her and smiled. Come out for dinner, she said. I just had dinner with Bai Shuili. She went back first. Guze raised his hand and looked at his watch. It's late. Let me see you off. She said no subconsciously, but he insisted. We haven't seen each other for several months. Don't you want to have a cup of tea with me? Lin Cece looked down. Mr. Gu is not so free, is he? She was about to leave, but Guze reached out to hold her. He was a little strong. Maybe he also realized that he was very rude, so his voice was a little soft. Just treat us as old friends. Lin Cece shook her head. Guze, you know. Guze frowned. You don't care where I went? There are many people who are willing to care about President Gu. Lin Cece lowered her voice. Let go. Guze grabbed onto her and walked out. When they were outside, he let go of her and said calmly, I made a trip to Switzerland and had a surgery. It was pretty serious, and it was a narrow escape. Lin Cece looked at him in shock, but she chose not to believe it. I don't believe it. He looked at her. Really, Cece, I thought I didn't have long to live. He went forward and hugged her. In the night, he said softly, I told myself that if I could come back, I would find a way to get you back. She was held by him, unable to move. Her body stiffened, and she was completely dumbfounded. After a long time, she finally whispered, Let's find a place to have some tea. She looked at him and realized that he seemed to have lost a lot of weight. He was a little out of shape, but he was still good-looking. Guze's throat seemed to be blocked. After a long time, he nodded. All right, let's find a place to sit. Chapter 3468. Lin Cece held a small cup and took a sip before asking softly, How is it now? I'm recovering well, Guze said calmly, but the doctor told me to take care of myself and not to have sex. Lin Cece was drinking tea and she almost spat it out. She looked at him and was speechless. Guze, why did you mention this? He was quite serious. Because I want to be with you, so I have to tell you that I can't have sex for a year. It's not good for my illness. Lin Cece couldn't help asking, What illness do you have? Guze paused. It's a serious stomach problem, but it's much better now. It shouldn't be a problem to live to 70 or 80 years old. She lowered her head and didn't ask anymore. Guze held her hand gently and said, Cece, what do you say? She looked up in surprise. Oh, I wish you a good recovery. His eyes were burning. Don't you have anything else to say to me other than this? What do you think I should say? Lin Cece smiled and said, President Gu, I'm not a little girl anymore. It's not like I don't know a man's trick. President Gu came out of death's door, but when I lost my child, when President Gu asked me who the child was, it was Mubai who accompanied me. His face was ashen. Lin Cece felt a sharp pain in her heart. Hurting him didn't make her happy, but made her feel even worse. She said in a low voice, Guze, let's be well. It's not that I'm cruel, but my heart is broken and I can't have a heart anymore. Have you seen the words on TV recently? I think it's very suitable to describe our relationship. He was still staring at her. Lin Cece said softly, Lon Koen Wuko. With that, she got up and walked towards the door. Late at night, she straightened her back alone. It had been so long. She had been away from him for a long time, and she was fine on her own. She really couldn't find a reason to return to his side. He was sick, and there was a doctor. But her heart was sick. Who would treat her? She couldn't even save herself. So how could she save him? Lin Cece walked out and felt a little cold on her face. When she looked up, she found that it was raining. The late autumn street was wet and shiny from the rain, making it seem cold. Only then did she realize that she hadn't brought her coat and purse with her when she walked out. She wanted to turn around, but a coat was draped over her shoulders. Then, a big hand held her. It wasn't as cold as before, but a little cold. I'll send you back. His voice was a little hoarse, and then he stuffed a woman's handbag into her arms. Lin Cece couldn't break free from him, so she could only follow him into the car. He drove an off-road vehicle, the kind with a domineering body. It didn't quite match his skinny figure, but fortunately, it made up for it with his temperament. Lin Cece got into the car, flipped her hair, and told him the address. He said he remembered it. She remained silent and did not say anything else. He started the car and smoked a cigarette with one hand. When he smoked the second cigarette, Lin Cece couldn't help but remind him, Your body doesn't seem suitable for smoking. The doctor only told me not to do strenuous exercise and didn't tell me to smoke. He laughed out in self-mockery. Can I smoke without a woman? With that said, he asked her seriously, If I don't smoke, can you be with me? Chapter 3469. Guze coughed softly and looked at her speechlessly. However, he put out the cigarette and focused on driving. The car was a little slow. In the rainy night, only the sound of the rain and the windshield wipers could be heard. No matter how slow the car was, it would eventually reach its destination. The car stopped outside her apartment, where Yumulin had parked last time. Guzay looked at her sideways. I'll send you up. Lin Cece shook her head. I don't think so. Thank you for sending me back. She unbuckled her seatbelt and wanted to get out of the car, but her wrist was held by a strong hand. He stared at her and said softly, Cece, talk to me for a while. Lin Cece looked down and was silent for a long time before saying softly, What else do we have to talk about? Guzay, you should hate me. I lied to you. She looked up at him and said slowly, We're even, aren't we? We're even. It's fair, so we can start over. His eyes were burning. Lin Cece smiled softly. We can't go back. With that, she looked into his eyes deeply. Just like our child. Once we lose him, we can never get him back. Guzay's expression changed. He raised his hand as if he wanted to touch her face. She looked at him sideways. In the end, he didn't. Turning his head, he looked at the rainy night in front of him and said quietly, Cece, we can heal together. You won't be the only one in pain. Her hand covered the back of his hand. He shivered and looked at her sideways again. Lin Cece looked at him and smiled. But I'll be in pain. Guzay, I'll be in pain. I'll be in pain when I'm with you. I'll think of those sad things, and I won't be happy at all. Her voice was clear in the rainy night. Look, I'm fine now. I might live like this for the rest of my life. It's good to be alone, really. With that, she wanted to move her hand away, but he quickly caught it. He held it very tightly, as if he didn't want to let go of it for the rest of his life. His voice was low and hoarse. But I'm not good, Lin Cece. I'm selfish. I don't want to let go. He was sick. It wasn't just a physical illness. After he recovered, he missed her even more. He wanted her to be his wife, even if it cost him everything. Guzay grabbed her with one hand and took out a document from the cabinet in front of the car with the other. He gently placed it in her hand. I was afraid that I couldn't come back. If that was the case, I chose to hand Hungtong over to you. Lin Cece seemed to be stunned for a moment. Then she laughed softly. For me? She looked at the document in her hand, and her voice suddenly became a little sharp. Guzay, you're gone, and you're forcing these things on me. Have you ever thought about my feelings? He was stunned for a moment. Lin Cece didn't look at the document seriously. She didn't look at the astronomical figures. She threw the document onto Guzay's hand and face. She cried and murmured, I don't want it. With that, she pushed the car door open and ran toward the stairs of the apartment. Guzay's face was like snowflakes floating over it. He immediately jumped out of the car and chased after her. He caught her in the dark corridor and pressed her against the wall. Lin Cece struggled and felt that she was about to be crushed by him. She turned her face away. Guzay, let go of me. Chapter 3470. Guzay's voice was extremely hoarse. I'm not letting go. With that, he lowered his head and kissed her. Lin Cece's eyes widened, and she subconsciously kicked him, but Guzay quickly held her down and didn't let her move. His lips were hot and burning. No matter where she turned her face, he had a way to find her lips. She resisted with all her might and inevitably hit her head, but she couldn't stop him. He held the back of her head and kissed her passionately, as if he wanted to kiss her until the end of time. Finally, when both of them were out of breath, he let go of her and said in a hoarse voice, Cece, I said that I was selfish. I'm willing to use the rest of my life to make up for what I owe you. She gasped and looked at him. Her eyes were clear and bright, but they were filled with tears. Guzay reached out and gently stroked her face. I'll give you time, but I'll pursue you again. There was a hint of fierceness in her eyes, but he smiled and leaned over to kiss her lips. He was about to leave. After a few steps, Lin Cece stopped him. Guzay. He turned his head and kept 2 steps away from her. Lin Cece tilted her head and said softly, You said that you want to be with me and make it up to me. Are you willing to give Hungtong to me? Now, not after you die. Her voice was a little mocking. Who knows what will happen after I die? A man's honeyed words are always very pleasant to hear. He looked at her with a frown and said in a low voice, You mean honeyed words? She smiled. Guzay suddenly walked over, grabbed her hand, and pulled her outside. He said in a low voice, I'll prove it. Lin Cece was stunned. She struggled and said, What do you want? Guzay, you're crazy. It's so late, I want to sleep. However, he directly dragged her into the car and immediately started the car. After driving for about 5 minutes, he called his lawyer. Go to my villa. With that, he hung up the phone and drove with a straight face. Lynn Cece's heart was beating rapidly. She somewhat realized what he wanted to do, but did he really not think that she was childish? She patted the window and shouted angrily in a low voice, Stop the car. Guze, I told you to stop the car. He didn't stop and continued driving straight ahead. About half an hour later, he returned to his place, which was also where Lynn Cece had stayed for a short period of time. He had raped her there, and it was also that night that she had a child, but that child was gone. She sat in the car and looked at the endless night. She sat there quietly and did not move. She said softly, Guze, why did you tear open my wound? In the dim light, her face glowed. She was crying. Is this interesting? Is it fun to force someone who has hurt you? Or do you think that I will be willing to return to your side if you give me everything you have? She laughed as she cried. Guze, you used to place a lot of importance on your career. You sacrificed me and that little fool for your career. Now that you say you love me, I have to obediently return to the past? Wouldn't that be too cheap of me? I'm cheap, Guze said in a hoarse voice. I was the one who begged you to be with me. Chapter 3471. She leaned against the back seat and said, I want to go home. This is your home, he said resolutely. Right then, a black Buick stopped beside their car. It was Lawyer Lynn. He got out of the car and greeted him, President Gu. However, when he saw Lynn Cece in the car, he understood. He thought that he was going to deal with their marriage. Guze rolled down the window and said calmly, Go to my study first. I'll be there in a while. Lawyer Lynn was a little uncertain. He took his briefcase and went in. When he met the servants, he asked a few questions, but the servants couldn't tell him anything. In the car, Lynn Cece looked at Guze and said, Aren't you afraid of embarrassing yourself by making such a big scene? She opened the car door and got out. She was sure that he wouldn't. He was just trying to scare her and move her. She would sign it and see how he would end up. However, she didn't see Guze looking at her gently and indulgently. He opened the car door and walked to the second floor. In the study, Lawyer Lynn was already working on his laptop. He was shocked, but it was President Gu's right to decide. Although it was such a big matter, he still carried it out. A servant brought over hot tea. Lynn Cece held the cup and took small sips, not saying a word. Guze's voice was especially clear in the dark. All the shares in Hungtong under my name will belong to Miss Lynn, but I will still be the executive president of Hungtong. As for my salary, Miss Lynn will decide. He looked at Lynn Cece with a smile and said, I'll work for you from now on. Lawyer Lynn, who was about to write the document, felt that it was a dog food. President Gu had given up everything to chase a woman, including his wealth and face. All right, he would write whatever President Gu said. Soon, the document was ready. Lawyer Lynn handed it to Guze. Guze only glanced at it briefly before he signed it and stamped his personal seal. He even prepared the official seal of Hungtong and stamped it together. It showed his sincerity. After he stamped the document, he pushed it in front of Lynn Cece and said gently, Cece, it's time for you to sign it. Lynn Cece looked at the words on it. One by one, they were magnified and then blurred. She looked down and picked up the two pieces of paper. Lawyer Lynn thought to himself, Go ahead and sign it. Hungtong will be yours once you sign it. Sign it, son. However, Lynn Cece tore the document into pieces and threw it at Guze's face. Guze, I'm not going to be crazy with you. After that, she walked outside. Guze chuckled and chased after him. Lawyer Lynn shrugged helplessly. Did men and women nowadays view money as dirt? How willful. He didn't stay any longer and went downstairs alone. When he passed by the master bedroom on the second floor, he heard Lynn Cece scream. It seemed that President Gu was doing something extremely embarrassing. Lawyer Lynn blushed and walked away quickly. Young people nowadays can't even restrain themselves. Meanwhile, in the master bedroom, Lynn Cece was done with by Guze. She lay on the bed and looked at him in shock. She spat out coldly. You lied to me. He said that he couldn't have sex, but she actually believed him. That was why she dared to come up with him. He was a liar. Chapter 3472. He reached out and gently touched her little face. His voice was hoarse. Cece, I've been thinking about you these past few months. I thought that no matter what I had to do, I had to get you back. I wanted you to come back to me. Lynn Cece stared at him and closed her eyes. So the transfer of assets is just an excuse for me to let my guard down, right? He actually smiled in a good mood. It was probably because he had been abstinent for a long time and was now relaxed. Now that he was relaxed, his true face was revealed. Not all of it. You signed it and it's yours. With that, he kissed her and continued. Lynn Cece couldn't break free, so she simply stopped struggling and let him do whatever he wanted without giving him a response. Good girl. He kissed her. He was already very satisfied. When a man had endured for a long time, he would be like a hungry wolf that had seen a feast. He would be as fierce as he could. However, his body wasn't very good, so he didn't let her go after 2 rounds. He had wanted to smoke after, but thinking that she was by his side, he gave up. Gouze leaned against the headboard and reached out to stroke her soft hair. He chuckled and said, "If it's not enough, I'll feed you again after a while." Lynn Cece didn't want to talk to him. It was late at night, and she was too lazy to move. She just thought that she had been played by a pig. Gouze's true face was revealed, and he reached out to touch her shoulder. Are you very satisfied tonight after not having a man for the past few months? She really couldn't stand him doing this. She felt that he was shameless, so she turned around. I don't lack men. I have plenty of clients for me to give my body to. His expression changed. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have let her go, but now he really couldn't do anything. After a pause, he said hoarsely, I believe in you, Cece. Lynn Cece was stunned. She used to want to believe in him, but she was hurt by his disbelief. Now that he said he believed in her, it was meaningless to her, but she still wanted to cry. After a long time, she said hoarsely, I want to sleep. I'll leave tomorrow morning. He looked down at her and smiled helplessly. Do you always hate me in your heart? No, she replied quickly. In my heart, you don't exist anymore. She added, yes, Gouze is gone, so don't make things difficult for me anymore. Initially, he wanted to say something, but because she was too tired, he decided to let her go. It didn't matter. As long as she didn't agree, he would stick to her. If she didn't agree for a month, he would sleep with her for a month. As they slept, they would develop feelings. Gouze was a man, and his thinking was different from Lynn Cece's. They didn't sleep in each other's arms, but for him, it was the beginning of a new relationship. Lynn Cece woke up early in the morning. When she opened her eyes, she felt a hand hugging her tightly. It was Gouze. He hugged her like a doll. When she woke up, she felt that she could barely breathe. She reached out to remove his hand, and he hugged her again. Lynn Cece couldn't take it anymore. She whispered, Gouze, can you not hug me like that? It's just a one-night stand. Don't make it seem like you're deeply in love. Gouze had just woken up, and he was very satisfied with hugging the soft woman. He pressed his face against her neck and said shamelessly, It's very comfortable to hug. Lynn Cece's expression changed, and she said softly, I want to get up. I have to go to work. He still didn't let go. I can support you. Chapter 3473. Gouze was silent for a while, but he still let her get up, even though he was very reluctant. When she picked up the clothes from under the bed, because they were wrinkled and even torn, she kicked him angrily, earning a low chuckle from him. Lynn Cece threw the clothes on his face and said angrily, Gouze, how do you expect me to get out? Gouze lifted the quilt and got out of bed. Lynn Cece immediately covered her eyes and said, Put on clothes. I have underwear. He chuckled lightly and then walked into the changing room. When she opened her eyes, he had already brought a set of clothes and placed it on the bed. Lynn Cece was stunned. It was a set of women's clothes with no tags removed, and the style was also the type that she liked. Gouze saw the shock on her face and said softly, I want to win you back. Of course, I have to be fully prepared. He said, Lynn Cece, I will spend the rest of my life chasing after you. Please take care of me. She blinked lightly, looked up at him, and then ran into the bathroom with the clothes in her arms. Guze chuckled softly and also went into the changing room to change before going downstairs. When Lin Cece came out, he was already downstairs. She bit her lip, brushed her hair, tidied it up, and went downstairs. The servants had already prepared breakfast, nourishing red beans, milk, bread with butter, and sandwiches. She sat down quietly. Before eating breakfast, she said quietly, "Help me buy the medicine later." Guze asked very softly, "Is it the contraceptive pill?" She nodded. This time, there were no harsh words. It was like adults rolling into sheets, and everyone was communicating with each other nicely. Perhaps she did not have the strength to shout at him anymore. Guze shook his head. "No need to buy it, Lin Cece. I'm going to have a vasectomy." She looked up at him suddenly. He smiled. "Is it that strange?" She still looked at him. "Why are you going to have a vasectomy?" Guze smiled meaningfully. "If you don't like it, I'll go for the surgery." She continued to look at him, not making a sound. Guze then very seriously asked, "Did it affect my performance?" "Cece, my body has not recovered, but it will be fine in the future." She believed him and no longer mentioned the matter of buying medicine. However, she said softly, "There will be no future." Guze didn't mind and said shamelessly, "Think about it. You're also a person, so you must have some physiological needs. I'm also free, so why don't we go together?" Lin Cece glanced at him. "I really want to slap you." Guze smiled, the kind of smile that was full of satisfaction. He quickly finished his breakfast and was in high spirits. He was so neat that he didn't look like a patient who had just recovered from his illness. Lin Cece looked down and kicked him under the table. He didn't mind and wiped his lips. "I'm going upstairs to get the car keys." Lin Cece didn't care about him and walked out first. Guze quickly went upstairs and came down slowly. He looked at her standing under the sun in the dress that he had prepared for her. Her long hair was casually scattered, and it was as beautiful as when they first met. At this moment, he thought of the little fool and the days that they used to have. In fact, she was still a little fool, and the little fool was her. How could he be silly for so long? How could he bear to hurt her for so long? Chapter 3474. On the way to send her to work, he casually asked her some questions about her work and didn't say anything more. When they arrived at her company, he put her down and smiled. "Do I need to pick you up from work tonight?" "No need." Lin Cece's answer was to throw him in the face and then walk into the building. Guze's eyes were a little deep. He looked up at the technology building and watched her naturally integrate into it. When she was his wife, he never thought that one day Lin Cece would have to work so hard. But now she was very good and did a good job. According to the detective he hired, Lin Cece's monthly income was about 50,000 to 80,000 yuan, which was very good in the IT industry. Even in a place like B City, it was also very good. He also knew that she actually had a lot of savings. She donated the 80 million yuan he gave her, but she also had a lot of money herself. She could go to a city to be with her parents, but she didn't. He understood her because he knew that it would be uncomfortable to be quiet. He respected her choice of this way, but he also felt sorry for her. Guze had endured for a whole night. At this time, he was a little addicted to smoking a cigarette and took a few deep puffs. He looked at the building again and drove the car away. Lin Cece walked into the building. Because it was the 8th floor, she didn't take the elevator but chose the stairs. She was usually not out of breath, but today her legs were very sore. Thinking of how Guze seemed to never be tired last night, her face became hot. She picked up the phone and dialed Bai Shuili's number. Bai Shuili woke up and answered the phone. She answered vaguely, "Cece." Lin Cece coughed lightly. "Did you persuade your lawyer to check it?" Bai Shuili shivered and immediately sat up. She grabbed her hair and almost shouted, "Lin Cece, it's all your bad idea." After saying that, she chatted for a while with a red face and hung up the phone. She covered her little head with a quilt. "Seamless link. Come and praise me." The quilt was taken away by a hand. Lawyer Ye's voice was gentle and smiling. "Aren't you afraid of covering yourself?" Bai Shuili mustered up her courage and stared at him. Her pretty little face was so hot that it felt like it was about to burn. She thought back to last night when he came back and laid on the bed with her. She mustered up her courage and suggested to have her body checked to see if there was anything wrong with her. In the end, Lawyer Yi stared at her for a long time and said softly, "How can you not know if there's anything wrong with me?" Then he forced her to examine him. The examination process was extremely perverted. He couldn't even look at the bed sheets. She was bullied badly, but he was extremely happy. Now, he brought up what had happened last night again. Riceworm was staring at him while wrapped in the blanket. Yi Mulin went over and hugged her. "Didn't you say you were going to have a checkup? Why don't you get up?" She looked at him in surprise, and after a long time, she slowly said, Can you have more? Last night, he must have been squeezed dry." Lawyer Yi reached out and gently caressed her little face. He said slowly, "Why don't we see if I still have it?" Riceworm shrieked, "You are too shameless." He laughed and kissed her little head. "Okay, let's go for a checkup." She said, "Oh," but then pulled his sleeve and asked in a low voice, "Yi Mulin, if I can't give birth, will you abandon me?" Chapter 3475. Yi Mulin smiled and rubbed her head. "If I had a problem, would you abandon me?" "Of course not," she blurted out. After that, she was stunned and then smiled. She put her arms around his neck and said softly, "Mr. Yi, you're so nice." He lowered his head and kissed her. "Wasn't last night better?" Her little face was red as she looked at him pitifully. "It's just that it's too good." He smiled and pulled her out from under the quilt. He placed her on his lap and helped her get dressed. She put her arms around his neck and giggled at him. He pinched her face and she cried out in pain. He laughed. After the meal, he took her to the hospital. It was a special institution for the government, and it was very secretive. When they got out of the car, Riceworm suddenly grabbed Yi Mulin's arm and said softly, "I'm a little afraid of pain." She searched on Baidu and found that gynecological examinations were very painful, so she was afraid. Yi Mulin looked at her and patted her hand. "I'll stay with you." She nodded and looked at him, asking in a low voice, "What about you? Are you scared?" Yi Mulin didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her question. He thought for a while and said, "I might feel a little uncomfortable." She looked at him with her eyes open and didn't understand. He smiled and rubbed her hair. Without saying anything more, he got out of the car and opened the door for her. In the end, she was the one who asked to come, and she was also the one who was afraid. Lawyer Yi coaxed his little wife for a while and then accompanied her to finish the examination. She was in so much pain that she cried hard when she came out. Yi Mulin also went for the examination himself, and there was no problem. The female doctor naturally recognized him and told him to relax, and they would have a baby. Also, they shouldn't have sex too often. Coming out of the doctor's office, Bai Shuili's face was a little red, and she stared at Lawyer Yi. He touched his face and smiled. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Bai Shuili bit her lower lip. "The doctor told you to control yourself." He reached out and hugged her gently. How can a newlywed couple control themselves? She glared at him. "We've been married for a few months. How long did you starve me the last time you left?" Lawyer Yi pinched her face. "I'm already very restrained now." Her little face was red. "Liar, why don't we try it at night?" His eyes were bright, as if he was about to do something bad. His family's Riceworm immediately hugged him and whispered no. Lowering his head, he looked at the furry little head in his arms and said gently, "Surely, let's go with the flow, okay? I also want a child, but I'm very satisfied with my current life." She nodded and looked up. "Are you going to work?" He raised his hand to look at the time. "How about this? I'll take a taxi to the office and you drive back." He had a car in the parking lot of the office, and this place was close to the office. Riceworm grunted and said obediently, "Goodbye, Lawyer Yi." Yi Mulin pinched her face. "I'll come back early tonight." She had already run away, her face red. "I asked Mubai out for dinner tonight." He pretended to be angry. So blatant? She turned around and made a face at him. "Mubai found me a job in advertising." Yi Mulin was stunned. He wanted to say something, but she had already run away. Chapter 3476. How Yun was in his 50s and had been with the Yi father for almost 30 years. He was used to seeing the wind and waves. At this time, seeing the eldest son of the Yi family, he could not help but greet him. Mu-Lin. Yi Mulin put out his cigarette. Uncle Hao, why are you here? Secretary Hao glanced in the direction of the building. Elder Yi is doing a physical examination inside. By the way, I saw Shirley go out just now. Are you here, too? He was still a little hesitant, but since the couple appeared at the hospital at the same time, it was obvious that they were here to pray for a child. Yi Mulin didn't really care. He smiled and said, Shirley wants to have a child, so she came to check. There's no problem. It's just a matter of time. Hao Yin nodded. Yes, Elder Yi has been waiting for a grandson for a long time. As they were talking, Father Yi walked out, followed by two assistants. Seeing Yi Mulin here, he frowned. Where's your wife? I asked her to drive me home. Yi Mulin smiled. How is Dad? Father Yi's expression was a little serious. After a pause, he said, It's all right, but the current situation is not very good. He rarely told Yi Mulin about the Z world. Now that he mentioned it like this, there must be something he wanted to say. Yi Mulin thought for a moment. I still have some time. Father Yi was already walking towards the car. Let's talk in the car. Yi Mulin followed him into the car, feeling a little uncertain. In fact, ever since Papa Yi went to his apartment last time, he had been feeling a little uneasy. That was why he was in a hurry to have a child. It was very quiet in the car. Secretary Hao was also there. Neither father nor son spoke. It was not until the car arrived at Father Yi's office that Father Yi said slowly, Hao Yun, you don't have to follow them. Secretary Hao understood in his heart that this was a private matter. Yi Mulin tilted his head and looked at his father. After a few seconds, he got out of the car and opened the door for his father. He was very respectful. When Father Yi got out of the car, he noticed that his steps were a little heavy. Yi Mulin followed his father to the office. Father Yi sat on the sofa and lit a cigarette. Yi Mulin sat beside him and accompanied him silently. He looked calm on the surface, but his heart was not at ease. He had a hunch that what Father Yi said next would not be particularly pleasant. Sure enough, Father Yi looked up at him. That look was rather complicated. Ruthlessness, determination, and a tinge of guilt. Yi Mulin clenched his fists tightly. In front of his father, he finally could not keep his composure. He whispered, Dad. Yi Zhenggang looked at his proud son. He had high hopes for his son. In the past, he didn't want him to enter politics, but now it was different. Father Yi put away the cigarette in his hand and said slowly and firmly, The Bai family is finished. Yi Mulin was stunned. He stared at his father for a long time before he said slowly and softly, Are you the one who wants the Bai family to be finished? Father Yi was wronged, but he was not angry. Instead, he said calmly, It's not me, but I can't save him. He said softly, He offended a lot of people after he took over. This time, his foundation will be destroyed. Yi Mulin's face trembled slightly. Dad, do you have any way to save him? His tone was pleading. Yi Zhenggang knew that it was a little cruel to talk to his son about this, but the reality was the reality. He asked his son softly, Dad, I can't save him, and I can't save him. At this time, we should be wise to protect ourselves and draw a clear line. Draw a clear line. Yi Mulin looked at his father and suddenly understood why he called him. Chapter 3477. Yi Mulin clenched his fists and said firmly, Dad, you like Shirley. I won't divorce her. Father Yi looked at his son and said coldly, Mulin, do you know what you're talking about? Your marriage with her was just a temporary measure. Now that the Bai family is finished, do you think it's any good for you to be entangled with her? You're going to enter Z world in the future. Yi Mulin looked at his father and took a step back. I won't enter Z world, and I won't give up on Shirley. Dad, I'm a human being, not a political machine. He looked at his father resolutely, turned around, opened the door, and walked out. When he walked out, Yi Mulin felt a cold wind. He reached out and pulled his coat, which Shirley had bought for him the other day. Just like that, he gently held it, as if the warmth from his fingertips could be transmitted to his heart. He irritably took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, and took a long drag before raising his eyes to look at the blazing sun. He felt empty all around him, as if he had lost something. He had never felt so helpless before. Yimulin went straight back to the office, but he didn't go upstairs. Instead, he went to the parking lot and drove back to the Yi family's old house. When he drove to the Yi family's house, Mother Yi was planting flowers in the yard. Seeing her eldest son appear, she smiled and said, "Mulin, why are you back at this time?" Yimulin closed the car door and walked slowly to his mother. His face was unprecedentedly serious. Mother Yi had been smiling, but seeing his bad expression, her smile slowly froze, and she said softly, "What's wrong, Mulin?" Yimulin lowered his eyes, relying on his mother, as if he had returned to his childhood. He knew that only his mother could persuade his father to take a step back in the matter of the Bai family and Shirley. He also knew that it was unfair for his mother to intervene in this matter. She had lived a smooth and happy life, but now she had to break up the relationship between husband and wife for her son's selfishness. But he wanted Bai Shirley, he wanted to live with her, and he wanted to grow old with her. Even if she wasn't so good, he still wanted her. There was no one else but her. It was hard for him to speak, but he still said, "Mom, can you—" Mama Ye's expression became more and more serious. She didn't answer immediately after hearing this. After a long time, she gently patted her son. "I know, I will persuade your father, but Mulin, I can only do my best. I can't do anything about their matters here. I can only stop here." With her words, Yimulin felt more at ease. He also knew that his request was making things difficult for his mother. He felt a little ashamed. "All right, there's no need to say anything to Mom. Mom likes Shirley too, and she wants you to be happy." "Mom," Mama Ye's voice was a little choked. "I know you like her, and I don't want my son to have a rough relationship." The Bai family and Yi family had a marriage alliance. So if the Bai family was destroyed, she knew that with Mu Lin Mu Bai's father's situation, Mu Lin could no longer be together with Shueli. Otherwise, the Yi family would be buried with him. Right now, the only thing they could do was protect the Bai family. Mama Yi comforted her son and told him not to stay for long and to return to the office. "Don't let Shirley know about this. It's best if you can send her away for a period of time. Don't let her come into contact with the Bai family. Shirley is an innocent child. I'm afraid she'll overthink things," Mama Yi said worriedly. Chapter 3478. Then he walked to his car and looked up at the dark clouds above when he opened the door. The weather in B City was going to change. He paused, gritted his teeth, opened the car door, and drove into the office. He had been restless the whole morning. He was a powerful man, but he was afraid to hear the sound of the phone at this time. He was afraid that things had reached the point of no return. At this time, he even hated that his surname was Yi. Yimulin kept smoking, and the office was full of the smell of smoke. Secretary Li opened the door and choked a few times. "Lawyer Yi, let me open the window for you." As she spoke, she went to open the window. Yimulin put out the cigarette, and said calmly, "Bring me this week's Beijing news." Secretary Li was stunned for a moment. She put the documents on Yimulin's desk and said softly, "Today's documents and this week's interviews." Yimulin rubbed his eyebrows and said lightly, "Take them back. Push them back as much as you can." Secretary Li saw that he seemed to be very tired. She was stunned and asked in a low voice, "Lawyer Yi, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" Yimulin looked up and forced a smile. "I'm fine. I just want to spend more time with my wife." Speaking of this, Secretary Li was a little talkative. She laughed and said, "It's my duty to accompany my wife. Actually, Mrs. Yi is still a little girl. Little girls need to be coaxed. Lawyer Yi, sometimes you don't need to buy expensive gifts. Buy some flowers and plants. Little girls like them very much." Yimulin looked at Secretary Li. "What flowers are suitable?" "Roses." Secretary Li smiled. "This is the most suitable. All girls like it." Yimulin nodded and let her go out first. After Secretary Li went out, he stood up and walked to the shutters, looking at the semi-panoramic view of B City outside. He was born in a prestigious family and knew that he was better than others since he was a child. He stood at such a high position now, but he knew that he couldn't protect his marriage and the woman he loved by himself, unless he gave up the Yi family and let it die. He took out a cigarette and lit it. When it was time to get off work, he realized that he didn't have lunch. However, he didn't feel hungry. He only felt that his whole body was empty. He bought a bunch of red roses when he went home, but later he changed it to a bunch of white roses because Shirley's surname was by. When they got home, she opened the door and hugged the flowers in his hands. "Are these for me?" After saying that, she sniffed and smiled faintly. "Very nice. I'll join in." He reminded her, "Be careful. Don't get pricked by the thorns." She ran away with the roses in her arms and ordered him happily, "Lawyer Yi, prepare dinner." He put his coat on the sofa and smiled. However, when he lowered his eyes, his expression turned gloomy again. His family's rice worm ran out and stared blankly at his face for a moment. Then it slowly hugged his arm and asked in a small voice, "What's wrong? Are you too tired?" Yulin smiled and rubbed his forehead. He said softly, "I'm a little tired." The rice worm looked at him eagerly. Then, "Can I cook for you? Although it's not very delicious." He laughed and rubbed her hair. "Let me do it. I'm afraid I'll die from the poison." She threw her arms around his neck and said affectionately, "If you're hospitalized, I'll stay with you." Chapter 3479. She nodded, kissed him, and ran away again. Yulin looked at her back deeply. He lit a cigarette and put it away after smoking half of it. He went to cook for her and made her favorite food. During the meal, Bai Shuili asked pitifully, "Are you unhappy? Is it because we aren't pregnant?" He looked at her and rubbed her head. "How can it be? Didn't we say that we would have children in the future?" Bai Shuili thought for a moment and said, "I saw Dad's secretary in the hospital today. Dad should be in the hospital. Did he ask you?" His palm stopped on her little head. After a while, he smiled and said, "Shueli, no." She lowered her head and ate seriously. After a while, she raised her head and said, "I will prepare for pregnancy seriously." She smiled at him foolishly. Yulin's hand stopped on her head. After a while, he nodded and said, "Okay." She stupidly lowered her head to eat. She ate everything and was very supportive of him. When he finished, she took the initiative to wash the dishes. "Mr. Yi, you go to have tea and rest." "No, we can't drink tea. We are going to have a baby. Also, you should smoke less." She squinted her eyes and smiled. Yulin pulled her into his arms and hugged her without saying a word. Bai Shuili was a little uneasy. She moved her little face on his shoulder and poked him with her little hand. "Yulin, I'm going to wash the dishes." He tightened his hand on her waist and murmured, "Let me hug you for a while." She replied with an "oh" and didn't say anything else. She obediently lay in his arms. After a long time, he finally let go of her and patted her. "Go wash the dishes. I'm going to smoke." She looked up at him and said softly, "We agreed not to smoke just now." Her little finger circled his heart. "Aren't we going to be pregnant?" Yulin's heart was wet. He suddenly carried her and walked to the bedroom. Bai Shuili exclaimed, "I want to wash the dishes." "I'll do it later." He pressed her down on the soft bed and kissed her lips. After that, it was wild, it was indulgence, it was entanglement. After a few times, Riceworm was so tired that she fell asleep. Before she fell asleep last night, she rested her head on his shoulder and drew circles on his shoulder with her little hand. "Yulin, did you take your medicine?" With that, she yawned and fell asleep in his arms. From that day onwards, it was as if he had changed into a different person. He wanted her day after day and paid attention to her menstrual cycle. He became indescribable. Bai Shuili felt that these days were also indescribable. She was filled with shame. She leaned into his embrace and whispered, "Yulin, do you really want to have a child?" He silently hugged her tightly. After a long time, he whispered, "I want you very much." She was a little shy and buried herself in his arms, feeling very warm. Unlike her warm world, Yulin's situation was as cold as winter. Mama Yi had tried to persuade Papa Yi on his behalf more than once, but to no avail. The relationship between husband and wife had also been affected. Mama Yi was so angry that she went back to her parents' home. Mubai went to accompany her for a few days, but she refused to come back. Chapter 3480. Yi Mulin was smoking in the office. After Secretary Li finished her work, she asked cautiously, "Lawyer Yi, my colleague said you're going to work for Z. Will you abandon us?" Yi Mulin looked up at Secretary Li's cautiousness and couldn't help but think of Bai Xueli. She didn't know if she would look at him like that and ask him if he still wanted her if she knew. He forced a smile and said dryly, "No, the current situation is just temporary." He had visited many clients who were close to him recently. Some of them were influential and owed him favors. He wanted to help the Bai family, to prove that he could handle it well and to change his father's mind. But it was difficult. At this moment, Yi Mulin realized the situation he was in. If he wanted to go against it, he wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. His answer made Secretary Li heave a sigh of relief. She put down a newspaper and said softly, "This is today's Beijing news. Lawyer Yi, I'll go out first." Yi Mulin nodded and watched her go out. Then, he took the newspaper to read. When he saw the headline, his face darkened. He clenched his fingers and left a long mark on the newspaper. Suddenly, he stood up and walked out. He didn't stop even when Secretary Li called him. As soon as Yi Mulin left, there was a discussion in the quiet office. Lawyer Ye's family is in big trouble. Yes, it's his father who is going against his wife's family. Today's newspaper came out. Anyone with eyes can see it. It's too dark. The people in that place really don't care about their relatives. Lawyer Yi loves Mrs. Yi very much. He won't sit and do nothing. So what? One person can't fight against a big group. There was a moment of silence. At this moment, Secretary Li hugged the documents and said with a sad but firm voice, "I believe Lawyer Yi and Bai Xueli will be together in the end." She looked around. "I've asked Lawyer Yi, and he said that he won't abandon us, so he definitely won't. Being a lawyer is his dream, and so is Bai Xueli. How can one not have a dream? How can one live without a dream? Lawyer Yi is so amazing. He will definitely think of a way. As for those old men you guys are talking about, I don't think they are that amazing. Lawyer Yi is young. I believe Lawyer Yi will win in the end." After she finished speaking, the office was silent for a long time. No one spoke. Secretary Li looked at everyone, a little disheartened. "Have you all forgotten how Lawyer Yi treated you? Lawyer Yi treated us so well." Holding the documents, she bit her lip and said, "I know some of you already want to jump ship, but I want to say that I will stay with Lawyer Yi until the end." After she finished speaking, she walked towards her office with a hint of stubbornness. A soft voice sounded behind her. "Me too." Then, "Me too. Me too. Count me in." Me too." Secretary Li turned around and looked at them. Her eyes sparkled as she said softly, "We'll persevere until the end and wait for Lawyer Yi to return." Yi Mulin drove through countless red lights and went straight to Father Ye's office. No one stopped him along the way because they knew he was Yi Xiaogong's eldest son. When he arrived at Father Ye's office, he pushed the door open and entered. Chapter 3481. Although Father Yi was unhappy, he still held it in. He looked at his son and said lightly, "Why are you so impatient? You didn't even knock on the door when you came. You're just like your mother. Once you throw a tantrum, you go home. Mubai can't persuade you." Yi Mulin's voice was a little tense. "Dad, do you really not know why Mom doesn't want to go home?" He threw the Beijing news in front of Yi Xiaogang and said firmly, "That's why Mom doesn't want to go home. She doesn't want to live with a cold-blooded person." Father Yi looked down at the section on the newspaper. After a long time, he smiled lightly. "You know," but he quickly slapped Yi Mulin in the face and said sternly, "Mulin, is this what you're like? You accuse your father of being cold-blooded because of a woman? Have you forgotten that your surname is Yi? Or do you have your mother's compassionate nature in your blood? She is a woman and you are a man. A man should be cruel to his enemy. Do you understand?" Yi Mulin didn't move after being slapped by him. The marks on his face seemed to be drawn on. He suppressed the pain in his heart and said in a hoarse voice, "Xueli is my wife, the person I love, not my enemy. And my mother's gentleness and kindness are exactly what you lack. Dad, it's not that you're disappointed in me, but I'm completely disappointed in you. He turned around and was about to leave. Yi Zhengang's soft but penetrating voice came from behind him. You can step out of this door impulsively today, but Yi Mulin, you have to come back and beg me. Yi Mulin turned around and looked at him. He said firmly, I won't. Yi Zhengang said to him, I want you to start from Z. If you develop well at your age, you will only be able to sit higher than me. That is the pursuit of the Yi family for generations. Are you going to ruin it for an ignorant and incompetent Bai Shueli? Yi Mulin chuckled softly. Then do you remember that last time you were in danger, it was because of Shueli and Mu Bai that the Bai family was willing to help? Can't you see it clearly, Mulin? Bai Shueli isn't suitable for you. Break it off as soon as possible and get everything back on track. I think that even AI Wei is better than her, but she can't be your wife. She can be your assistant. Yi Zhenggang made it clear, you need a woman like that. Mu Lin was very clear about his intentions. At this time, Father Ye's secretary came in. She was a very good-looking woman in her 40s who was unmarried. Yi Mulin suddenly understood the role of this secretary. He chuckled softly and looked at Yi Zhenggang. Dad, is this what you're talking about based on your experience? Don't insult me. Don't insult my mother. With that, he quickly left the office. When he walked out, his state of mind was different from the last time he walked out of this place. Last time, it was an epiphany. This time, it was a hopeless situation. He was about to drive away when he met his mother at the door. Mother Yi was sitting in the black limousine. The window was open a little. She called out to Mu Lin softly and then ordered the driver to drive. Yi Mulin was stunned for a moment before he followed. The car drove back to a cafe in the city. Mother Yi got out of the car calmly. Her temperament was different from the woman in charge of the Yi family. She seemed to be much colder. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.